Welcome to the Truth for Your 20s podcast. My name is Katie. I'm a proud girl mom. I've been married 20 years and counting. I'm a keynote speaker to sororities nationwide and a passion to be who I needed when I was younger.
And I'm Shayna Webb, proud big sister of 5 girls, Chattanooga content creator, high school coach, and your resident 20-something co-host who definitely doesn't have it all figured out yet, but loves talking about it anyway.
And together, we are here to bring a little truth, encouragement, real stories, and laughter to your 20s.
Woo!
Hello. Today is going to be one of my favorites because it's going to be basically a mentoring episode. And my young friends, all the questions that you may have, we're just going to dive in. So all the myths that you might have heard along the way, things you might question in your 20s and stay up at night like, is this normal?
Yeah.
We're going to go to all the good stuff today.
How this came about is we originally were going to talk about like side hustles or something. And then I was absolutely just going through it this week. For context, again, I am 26, which is crazy. So I'm like right in the middle of my 20s. And last night I just had, honestly, it's exactly textbook kind of crash out. Like I just cried for like 30 minutes. Like, what am I doing with my life? It feels, I'm so in it, you guys. That's why this podcast is great. It's because I definitely don't have it all figured out. And sometimes you just have those nights. And it, obviously, being a girl, like you never know, like there's hormones and there's just craziness and there's outside stresses and then there's just all the things. And so obviously it's a new day and it's been a great day so far. And so obviously like last night I was just so stressed and I was like, Katie is the person I need to just talk to about this because she's just such a good mentor and friend in real life. And so we were like, let's pivot and just have a mentor episode, really. And so in this episode, we have 5 or 6 different maybe myths, maybe facts, things that we just hear a lot in our 20s. And Katie's obviously lived longer on this earth. She's not old, you guys. She just has a lot of...
Can't say the old word.
Yeah, no, she is just an amazing mentor and talks to, girls in our 20s, that is your life and you're so good at it. So I'm just like so thankful to get to be here with her midlife crisis. What is it? Quarter life. Yeah. Quarter life crisis is what happens when you're 25, 26, or just anywhere in your 20s, I guess. Yeah. And so we're going through the 5 or 6 facts or myths, and then we're going to just read a bunch of questions that you guys submitted of like common like questions you guys had about things in your 20s. And we'll just go through as many as you can until we run out of time. So that's what this episode is.
I can't wait. And you're sweet. I don't have it all figured out, which we'll get into as well. But yes, living a little longer and just being passionate about your age group, I hope I can shed some light into these topics.
Exactly. Because obviously your 20s, there's so many different things going on, which I know we've talked about the defining decade before of how there's just so much. But just for, any relatability out there, like right now, currently, I am navigating job changes. We're also moving. I have my own side hustle that turned into a business. And then you're also navigating friendships and just figuring out how much time do I spend with my friends versus with my husband versus with my job versus working on trying to make extra money because everything is so expensive these days. And it's just hard. Like you basically have to have a side hustle to even afford basicness, basically. And so it's just like there's so many moving pieces and it just feels very overwhelming sometimes. And so that's, I think what started my crash out, honestly, is just trying to figure out where I want my life direction to be. And it was very comforting last night amongst the tears and everything to just turn on worship music, which helped a lot for me. And I just turned on, I don't know if anybody does this, but sometimes I'm like, God, I don't even know what I'm supposed to, like, I don't know where I'd turn in my Bible for this. I don't know where I would even turn. So sometimes I just put my worship playlist on and put on shuffle. And I just am like, God, whatever song I need to hear next is how you're trying to speak to me. So that's what I did last night. And the song that came on was Lord, I Need You. And it was just very good. It was just like, okay, I just need you because I feel like I don't know what I'm doing with my life sometimes. And it feels so confusing. So the first, is this a myth? Is this a fact thing I was going to ask Katie is your 20s are for figuring it out. I feel like I hear that all the time. And I feel like I'm not going to figure it out. But what's your thoughts?
My thoughts are that life is for figuring it out. And there's so many stages and beautiful seasons of life that you learn. And, you're always learning. I would say you're either growing or you're dying, right? And so you're growing, yes, a lot in your 20s. And the defining decade, like we talked about, a lot of huge life changes often happen in your 20s. So, sure, it is a defining decade where you figure a lot out, but how sad, honestly, would it be if you had it all figured out? Because then what else is there to learn? And so, and we're also becoming experts in different things, we have
Hmm.
to remember. So, you know much more about a lot of things than I do, and vice versa. And so, like, whatever path you're on, maybe, what you're doing for a job, where you live, we're watching the Olympics right now, and a lot of at least the US Olympians, this is the Winter Olympics, they are not usually from Florida, right? A lot of them are from like Utah and more northern areas. And my point with that is they're becoming experts just because of like they could ice skate in their backyard and stuff like that. And so what I'm meaning is what you surround yourself with, all the little things you do day to day, you're figuring out and you're learning. And so we're all on a life journey of figuring it out. Some are a little faster than others, and there is no finish line either, right? I had two grandparents lived until their 90s, and neither of them said, "Aha, yeah,
Yeah.
figured it all out."
Right. I remember, I just feel like when you're a teenager, you always think your parents have it together. And I remember another time I was having a crash out because, there's a lot of them in your
As
20s.
you do.
And I was talking to my mom, and she was like, "Well, I also don't have it figured out. I am feeling the same things as you sometimes." And I remember just saying, "So you mean to tell me it's always going to be like this forever? Like I'm always just going to be confused and not know exactly where to go?" So hopefully there's at least some kind of finish line for that, but maybe there's not. I don't know.
I mean, I think that, the Frederick Buechner, he was, survived the Holocaust, and he wrote a lot of books, and he says that the world's hunger and your passion, where those two things meet is where you find your calling. And so
Mm.
I think that you are definitely doing a lot of things God called you to do. Like, and it's not, we think sometimes you have to be building a park for the homeless and saving
Yeah.
children from orphanage. You were doing a service to the community. You were doing good things in life. And so many different roles are. This is just a random example, but I remember one of my daughter's volleyball games. I don't remember if I shared this story or not. There was this guy serving buffet like green beans. This was not he did not have to have a doctorate. This was probably not something he like wanted to be when he was 5. But the most happy he stood out to me, but just kind and like just kind of dancing a little bit while he's serving those green beans. And so you can be an
Yeah.
amazing like serving and rocking your role, whatever that may look like. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, the next, is it a myth or is it true thing that I hear a lot is you need to wear sunscreen in your 20s.
Of course, 1,000%. So I worked for a dermatologist office, fun fact, when I was in college. So from like 18 to 22, I guess.
Mhm.
My side job, I, go to school and then I would go do stuff at the dermatologist office. And what a blessing. I did not realize that at that young of an age, seeing people coming, getting parts of their ear removed and other things like that because they did not indeed wear sunscreen. And so it made me super cautious at that age, like wear all of the sunscreen. And I think that that obviously served me well now that I'm in my 40s. And also understanding that not all skincare is created equally. We
Mhm.
would get samples of a lot of different products, and these were like nice, high-end dermatology recommended lotions and stuff like that and face washes. And I got to try a lot of them. Uh, they're not all created equally, not necessarily price wise, but there's something called EWG that you can type in, anywhere, and you can grade anything you put on your skin of how helpful or toxic and all this kind of stuff. And definitely recommend doing that. It kind of helps you, just a free guide of what you put on your skin. But yeah, you taking care of your 20s, you taking care of your skin in your 20s will serve you well forever, but continuing obviously to do that. And I've seen a esthetician a few times, and she says, you can buy the lasers, you can buy all this stuff, but the best thing you can do for your skincare is daily taking care of you, washing your face, putting the lotion, that kind of thing, because a once a month laser or whatever, I mean, once a year is not going to do nearly as much good for your skin as a daily skincare routine. So,
Well, that's good and a good reminder for all of us. I mean, I don't even, sometimes I feel so lost when it comes to all of that.
yeah,
Just on how much to even do. Cause I mean, what I do is I just wash my face in the morning and then I put on like a 15 SPF.
you don't have any like oils or anything like that, any of that good stuff,
That's all I do.
girl.
Well, and then at night, I mean, I've started using some of the night lotion from Dandel when we
Yes,
went to Dandel.
yes.
But I guess I need to reapply during the day. Is that
No,
what you
just morning and
suggest?
night. I would just say just
Okay.
morning and night. I wash my face in the morning and put on the stuff, and then in the evening. But yes, we did get to partner with Dandel, and we're so thankful for that. And we wouldn't just partner with someone who has junky lotion or junky
Right.
products. And because I am so passionate about skincare and my background in working in a dermatology office, I know they have legit good stuff. So definitely a shout out if you're not sure where to start. They have amazing skincare products, and they're affordable too. Some of these stuff can be hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
It's insane. They have really good affordable stuff. Skincare daily routines is way better than you could even do for any kind of fancy esthetician. They're all the routines. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's great. And again, shout out to Dandel because they're awesome. And we have a discount code for them.
Truth20, save 20% at checkout.
And it ships nationwide, which is super, super cool. So shout out.
Shout out.
Okay, the next myth/truth is you should take risks while you're young.
Okay. Well, sure. I think that this is a little tricky because our culture right now says, settle, travel the world, quit your job if it isn't serving you, a lot of that kind of stuff. But that can also lead to irresponsibility, just a lot of more questions than answers, really. Taking risk. Yeah, I would say that's a case-by-case basis depending on a lot of stuff. I think that, you can take a risk at any age. And so, there's that. But also, I think we talked about the story. I told you I moved to New York when I first graduated college. And I'm glad I did that because I couldn't do that now. I couldn't just bye family,
Right.
and go live somewhere else for a few months. So in some cases, yes. But I don't know. I like to play devil's advocate with conversations like this because while our culture is don't settle down, travel, quit your job, whatever. Okay, in some cases, sure. But there's also a lot of beauty in my granddad, like I said, lived till he was in his 90s. He had the same job. He lived in the same town. And there's beauty there too. He lived a beautiful, great life. He knew everyone in town. So there's beauty on both sides of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say, what's the worst that happens? That's how you decide if you want to take it or not. If you're wondering, should I take a risk and try to start a business? What's the worst that happens? You just go back to working your 9 to 5. If it doesn't work out, that's not a very bad risk. Just do it. Just try while you are young before you have kids. Or even if you do have kids, still try it and just, while you're young or while you have all this energy.
Depending on what the risk, I think it's a great question. I remember when I was scared to first start posting on social media, someone asked me that, what's the worst that can happen? And then I was like, well, I'm afraid of what one random person's going to think. What?
I'm nervous. The risk is people who are jealous of you sending your stuff behind your back. It's not a terrible risk.
Brush. Bye-bye.
Exactly. However, if the risk is something more extreme, that's, I guess, obviously case-by-case basis for sure.
Yes.
So the next truth/myth is when you get older, your metabolism slows down and you can't eat what you want.
Okay, I have strong feelings about this one, guys. So I remember hearing this so often. So I've always been, I'm 5'8" and pretty thin. And so I've, just always been pretty thin. I got these comments a lot. And it was say I was eating a candy bar or something. And I would always hear women in their 40s well, enjoy that now. And just you wait, when you get to be my age. Well, I heard that all the time. So much too. I remember I was never diagnosed with any kind of eating disorder, but I definitely had some body dysmorphia or whatever we want to call it. I remember in high school, I was 5'8", weighed 110 pounds, and I was taking diet pills, Shayna. Right?
Yeah.
Bless my heart.
Yeah.
Because I just thought I can't eat what I want. It's inevitable. I will be overweight and unhealthy. There was no choice in the matter. That's kind of what was the narrative I was told. And I definitely disagree. Busted myth. Because I'm 46 and I think I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. And it's choices. I enjoy food, but I eat for nourishment. I eat to live. I truly don't enjoy a lot of junk food because it doesn't make me feel good. Every time I drink a soda, I get a headache. It's just not what I enjoy. I enjoy working out. I enjoy being active. And so these are things that I'm not forced to do. They're not miserable for me. This is something that if you listen to your body, and I think that you need to do that more and more as you get older, your body tells you, yes, this food makes me feel good. Yes, this movement makes me feel good. And so I really want to do those things. And yeah, it's just a choice. You get to choose. You can, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being overweight. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is choices in the matter. Metabolism may slow down. I don't know. It's honestly, if that has happened for me, I don't really know. I just keep going, and I'm just busy, and I eat, and I doing all right. I don't I don't ever weigh myself. I don't really care, but I'm still within a healthy range, and so just living my life.
There's so much body dysmorphia, I think, that we get, especially even more now with social media and comparison and everything, and all of the diet pill commercials and all of the you need to drink this and this is how I lost 20, like all of those things. I think it's just so hard. I mean, I know we could probably do a whole episode on that. I feel like it's so hard to know what to eat and eating healthy and all of the things with your body changing and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But it's good to know that everybody is different. Right. So just because someone tells you that you're not going to be able to eat chocolate when you're 40 doesn't mean that's true.
Yes, and those women, they probably just had gotten overweight, and it made themselves feel better, like it was just inevitable, and they didn't have a choice in the matter by telling my 20-year-old self that, I was going to get, this was just my future, whether I wanted to or not, but it wasn't true. And so, no. Yeah. It was a myth for sure.
Okay, let's move into some questions that we got from you guys. And again, reminder, we love hearing y'all's questions. Please DM them to us on @truthforyour20s. That's 2020, or leave them in Spotify or however you want to ask. But here are just some of the questions we got, and we're just going to go over a couple, or, because there's soapboxes that we could obviously go on for longer and longer, but these are more of like the rapid fire version. Okay, first, how do I choose a career when I don't feel called to anything?
I think we kind of talked about that a little bit, that your calling and where the whole world's hunger meet, that is where you're supposed to be. So you can be passionate about a lot of different things, and it does not have to be something miraculous or whatever. So where you might end up is maybe not where you are right now, especially in your 20s. I look back, my first job was in advertising, and I was like in the editing room while we were filming commercials and learning how to do voiceovers and all this kind of stuff. And look at us now on a podcast, like I never knew that those little tools and even editing videos for social media would be something that I was learning in my 20s in the editing room before social media even existed. And so God is using every little step along the way. And so we like to glamorize or look at other people and they are more figured out, or they're doing this more miraculous job than you. I think that we all have to do whatever it is where our feet are planted and bloom there, and just do your job to your best of your ability and bloom where you're planted. And you never know how those skills might serve in a different way when you get older.
Yeah. And for some practical, when people are in college, I remember just having this conversation a lot, and with, people who are still in college, I've had this conversation with, is I would just suggest, if you truly don't feel called to anything, I would suggest getting a general communications or general business degree, because there are so many different jobs you can get with that. Or, there's a lot of jobs you can get without a college degree in general too. So many of my friends are in jobs that they did not go to college for. Sometimes jobs require a college degree, and that's why I suggest general communications or general business can get you past most of those requirements, when it's you have to have at least some kind of job. Yeah. But even if you go and you get general communications and then you decide you want to be a teacher, there's so many, that's what my brother-in-law is looking at doing right now. And so it's there's so many different avenues you can take, so you don't have to feel that pressure. Though there's so much pressure. I remember going to college and saying I had to figure out my major because it's going to decide my whole life. And there's just so many things that you can do without it being super tied to your college degree. So I always suggest just any kind of general business or general communications degree can get you into a lot of different places.
Yeah, good advice for sure.
The next question was, should I quit my job if it drains me?
Some of these, we always look for the black and white answer, but there's so much gray in life. So we glamorize this on social media. I quit my job and look at me now.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think a lot of this stems from social media, because people will be like, here's your sign to finally quit that toxic job and go be an influencer. That's what it is. I remember almost making one of those myself, but I didn't, because I didn't want to add to the glamorization of quitting jobs.
We need to have a talk with your specific, situation and stuff like that. Maybe the quote toxic job you're in is preparing you for something else. Maybe the quote toxic job you're in isn't a bad job. You just have a really annoying coworker who is about to quit and you don't even know it. So there's so many different examples to unpack here. Bloom where your feet are planted. I'll say that again. And think, what is your lowest hanging fruit is also something that was really good advice that was given to me at some point. And so if it is starting a side hustle and maybe letting that grow, what is something that comes easy for you that you can do tomorrow something that you could start doing to make money tomorrow. And those little steps, you never know how that might grow. So I've known lots of people who have huge businesses by starting doing, selling stuff on an Etsy shop. And so you never know what those little steps can take. But yeah, there's definitely not a yes or no answer to that question.
I would highly recommend, as someone who quit their full-time job to do their side job, which was social media, I would wait at least, I don't know. I guess you could wait until you maybe made a certain amount of money before you quit your consistent stream of income. I started my LLC for my social media business in August 2023, and I officially quit my job in October 2024. So over a year later is I was still working full time and then doing my side hustle on the side. Yeah. And now, as of January 2026, I'm back into a job. So it's like, you just never know. And that's maybe one reason, like, take risks while you're young is a good example. Yeah. It's, I have been trying it for a while and it's still working. It's just, I realized that there's different things, you just have to figure out. And that's one reason I was questioning out, because I still don't exactly know. Yeah. But as far as like actual practical advice, I would highly, highly recommend not just quitting with nothing in your savings or nothing necessarily ready yet. And a lot of times people are like, well, I don't have time to really fully dive into my side hustle. And that is where I say, as soon as you quit your job, you're going to be doing what you love as your work. And so it won't be your passion project anymore. It will be the thing that you have to do to get gas in your car or put bread on the table or whatever. Anytime someone is doing their passion full time, they are still having to do it to make money. So just know that when you're quitting your job, you're risking the burnout becoming part of like what you're passionate about type of thing. And so that's one reason I went back to working for an actual job, is so I don't have to like make sure I have to do my passion, if that makes sense. I want to do my passion because I'm passionate about my passion. So that is where I would say, if you're thinking about quitting your job to do what you're passionate about, just have some savings, I guess, ready, because you don't want to be forced to like burn out of that passion because you're having to do it way harder than what you originally were thinking.
No, that's super good advice. I just want to add, when I was in New York, I had a recruiter tell me, and it stuck with me, that what you do is almost secondary to who you work with, because a really annoying employee can make or break, or can make a job really difficult, and a really great employee can make a not so great job amazing. And so who you work with is a big deal. So don't like maybe get confused with your job is terrible just because you have a terrible coworker, or vice versa. So just something to keep in mind.
Right. And so many things are who you know, at least in like job world. So you never really want to quit and burn bridges, I would also say.
Yes.
Because you never know when those people will turn up again. And also I would suggest, if you are in a toxic job, start applying for things, on the side. You don't have to broadcast that you're applying for other jobs. And then like you would at least have something lined up before you're necessarily feeling like you have to quit your job. Maybe you can, if you have a side passion that you think you could do full time, but you're still working a job and you're like, I'm not sure really when I should quit my job to do it. I would suggest like maybe even look at dropping to part-time or switching to an easier job that gives you more mental capacity or time to work on that side passion before it becomes your main your main hustle.
Yeah.
Work on your side hustle before it becomes your main hustle.
Yeah, you've lived that, so that's good advice for sure.
Yeah. Okay, the next question is, how do I know if he's the one? I do feel like we kind of did talk a little bit about this before, but do you have any other thoughts, Katie?
Yeah, I did a whole podcast episode on this once upon a Truth for Your 20s time, so I will link that. But I'm going to bust a few bubbles, and that I think that the one is a myth, because what I see is people get married, maybe kids and stress and life is crazy, and that, and then you might look at your person and say, well, maybe I shouldn't marry the one. And at the same time, maybe a coworker is very flirtatious. Like, it just can become very confusing. And then you get out of that marriage and you married another, the one, it like this just you can see how slippery a slope this can become. So I think that I know what the question is like, how do I know when I need to marry this person? Again, before you get into a relationship, I would write down some non-negotiables, what matters to you most in a dating relationship. And hopefully that's a shared faith is number one. And then just there's little things that may or may not matter to you. And obviously you need to decide those. And this is tricky too, because like having a list for another beautiful but flawed human being, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, yes, some things should matter, but hold that with an open hand, because you don't know what God's going to present to you. And we talked about that. But anyways, so how do you know when you found the one? bathe it in prayer. Talk to people who you love and trust. What do you see on the other side of this relationship? Which is a beautiful but hard question to ask. And people who know and love you, hopefully they're not clouded by emotional judgment, which is the thing. If you are in a relationship, you have emotions, as you should. But it definitely, emotions cloud judgment. It's a fact. So if you are all caught up in as you should be, it is often hard to see potential problems. And so to ask someone on the other side of the relationship, what do you see? And that can help you define if this is someone you love and trust, obviously.
Right. And you were kind of talking about the slippery slope and sliding. And I do think that when it comes to you're dating someone and you're questioning, well, should we just get married or should we just move into together? I would highly recommend not sliding into it. So maybe it's like, well, we hang out together every night. I sleep over every night anyway. Like we should just move in together, rather than like a decision and, hey, let's actually move in together. Or same, all our friends are getting married. It just feels like the right thing to do. Well, we should just get married because everybody else is doing, or like, I think that's what we're supposed to do next in life, rather than will you marry me? It's a big decision. And I think that if it's a big decision, it'll be more of I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's just more
defined. Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than I just slid into this because this is what I thought I was supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. So don't slide into anything in your relationship. Yeah. Really just as soon as you know that this person is not someone you could spend forever with, just end it then, before more memories are created, before more things happen.
Yes, that's the whole situationship stuff. And it's nothing serious. We're just having fun. That statement makes me go crazy because, well, when do you define serious, and when are feelings getting involved? And yeah, that can, and then your friends group and their friend group, and then you're all of a sudden, before you know it, you're in a relationship where someone's going to get hurt or get married. But if you're sliding into this thing very, loosey-goosey with no plan, it just seems like a recipe for heartbreak.
Exactly. And there's many more podcast episodes we could do on that.
Yes.
We're going to do one more question. This one says, Shayna, I saw you recently got a house. How do people afford houses at 26 or 25 or 23, which is how old we were when we bought our first house? And I will just say to that, there are different priorities for different people, obviously. And so you can spend a lot of money on a wedding, or you can spend a lot of money traveling. You can spend a lot of money on pets, all of these different things you can spend a lot of money on. How Cameron and I bought our first house at 23 and we were not making that much money. At the time, I was working my nonprofit job. I was making $32K a year, I think. It really wasn't much. Cameron was early on into his mortgage career. And what we did was we sold Cameron's car, got like 10K or maybe 8K for it. I can't remember exactly. I remember we got a lot of money for selling his car, and we became a one-car couple. Because my car was already paid off. His, we were paying loans on. So we sold his car so we didn't have to make car payments anymore. And then we got basically the money for a down payment. And we bought a pretty cheap house, but it worked. We just knew we didn't want to keep renting. I will say renting is a good decision, I think, when you're not sure if you're going to live in a place for a long time. But we knew Chattanooga was our forever home. And so when we were buying our house, we knew this house wasn't going to be our forever home, but we would at least be in Chattanooga for a while. And so we ended up spending a little under 10K, maybe around 10K total on the actual down payment and all the closing costs and all these different things, because there's so many different home buying hacks, is how I like to call them, different programs for first-time home buyers, different types of things you can do. You can go in, there's so many podcasts, not ours, that are about money and all of the Dave Ramsey stuff about, how you're saving your money versus spending your money. Okay, obviously is a lot of money, but it's not as much as I always thought you needed like $30,000 to buy a house, and you really, really don't. There's so many good first-time home buyer programs and different things you can do with having sellers pay for closing costs and different things like that we ended up doing. But obviously it does involve saving. And so when we have now bought our second house, it was putting aside money every single month that we never even touched our bank account. So it'd go right into savings for our next house and things like that. Good. So it's just like people have different priorities. I mean, I obviously don't wear a ton of like super nice designer clothes. It just depends on where you want to spend your money, I would say.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. My mom and I shop at this bin store where like the Amazon returns end up. It's so fun. We love it. We go on Dollar Day because we're bougie. But anyways, yeah, it's just funny. People think that like, oh, you can afford this and you can afford that. It's like, well, yeah, but I shop at a bin store for my clothes, and you know what I mean? It's just all of them, just what you decide to put your money in. So
right, exactly. And I do understand not everyone has $10,000. Most nobody whoever has just $10,000 to throw away, whatever. But this is not throwing away. This is like very investing in a house. Something I didn't know, but I'm married to a mortgage loan officer, so I know, is when you rent, you're paying your landlord, right? And you never see that money again. When you own a house, you're paying a mortgage and you see that money again when you sell your house. You're building equity in it and everything. And so that's where we wanted to be. If we're paying, $1,500 to $2,000 a month on rent, or we could be paying that money into a mortgage, we're going to pay it into a mortgage so we see it again. So that's why we really prioritize trying to buy a home early. And I also didn't realize how it wasn't $30,000 to buy a home. Even our second home, we spent less than $10,000 with all the closing costs and down payment. Because again, I always thought it was going to be like $30,000, and it's not, because I guess that's just what people tell you.
Yeah, one of those myths that we just busted.
Anyway, yes.
Go team.
Okay, well, I thought it would be fun to ask Katie a closing question as we end the episode. Katie.
Yes, Shayna.
What's one piece of advice you followed that you now think was wrong?
That I now think was wrong? Well, I definitely dated with no plan or no intention. And, like, oh, they're cute. That was my only basis of doing anything. And so that just led to heartbreak and, just not the path I want to go on. And so I definitely would recommend having some sort of a plan. And, dating and relationships are a big deal. One of the biggest decisions of your life. And to go in it with loosey-goosey and with no plan and no intention was definitely not. Obviously, I did later once I wised up and met my husband, but before then, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. More episodes.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for listening in. Obviously, we'd love to hear more of your questions that will inspire future episodes. So give us a follow over on Truth for Your 20s. Send us a message. Let us know if you listened to this episode. We love to hear from you guys.
Yay. Thanks so much for being here.
Bye. See you next Tuesday.